Hello, everyone. Do you wish you had someone to talk to about the latest 90 Day Fiancé episode? Do you get frustrated listening to podcasters who chat about themselves or an unrelated topic? Well, this podcast is the answer you've been looking for. We aren't afraid to tell you what we think of the cast or their behavior. Our show is raw and honest. We don't hold back because you deserve a conversation that makes you feel like you've just talked to your best friend and the 90-day world makes sense again. Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé Honestly. Hi, Amy. Feeling
Hi,
better?
V. I am, thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you. This is just a Canadian Thanksgiving, of course. The Americans are doing theirs later on next month because we're so much colder, right?
Yes,
Isn't that the reason?
That is the exact reason. It is not nice outside.
Right. Okay, let's dive in. This week was the season premiere of season 10 of 90 Day Fiancé, the OG series.
Season 10!
We were treated to an entirely new cast with the exception of Gino and Jasmine, of course. And although we only met the three of the new couples in this latest episode, it's a very controversial bunch, I think. So there's a lot to talk about. Remember, please stay tuned until the very end of the episode when Amy's going to tell us a tidbit of 90 Day Fiancé gossip, which you definitely don't want to miss. So let's get started with Ashley in Rochester, who is 32 years old, the witch. She is partnered with Manuel, who's 35, and he's from Ecuador. So these guys met 10 years ago when she was traveling down to Ecuador, and they got engaged after 1 week. Bit of a red flag there.
Very reasonable.
That's not the word I thought you were going to use. She comes back to the US, they break up, and they've been apart for about 7 years, but are now back together again. The biggest secret here, I think, or one of many, is that she hasn't told Manuel that she's a witch, and he's Catholic, and as she described it, very Catholic. So what a way to start your relationship as a married couple by lying about what you do for a living.
Especially because they've known each other for 10 years now, and this is apparently a very big part of her life and her personality. Obviously, we've seen her apartment, and we've been given a very initial look into her life, and we can see how impactful it is on her life. So if it's that big of a deal for you and your lifestyle, why would that not be a conversation? I feel like this is an ongoing theme that we're seeing with these couples, is a sheer lack of communication about real life issues. And I think that that's a theme throughout the show, and especially with this first episode of the first season of season 10.
Absolutely. Why did the question not ever come up in the 10 years that they've known each other? Ashley, what do you do for a living? I'm curious. How do you earn a living? She's never had that question posed to her, or has she? And she's just simply lied about it and said, I do consulting or something like that doesn't actually describe what she really does. Do you think that was how it went down?
I feel like she was greatly limited with the amount of information that she gave him, because she did say something to the effect of how she did tarot and astrology. So maybe he thinks that she's just a reader as opposed to being a full-blown witch. And I'm still not really clear on what exactly that means, but I'm sure we'll find out as the season progresses. But I feel like she's just put it under the guise of, oh no, it's just this, without giving him the full picture of what her life actually looks like.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just find it very strange that they haven't talked about this in detail, and that she's felt compelled not to reveal the truth until he comes to the United States. And there's this interesting meeting that she has with some of her friends. She discloses that the friends didn't even trust that her relationship was real until she had been to Ecuador 3 times and the K1 visa was issued. So I found out a bit worrisome. If your friends don't believe you when you say, I'm in a relationship with this guy and it's serious, we're going to get married, what does that really say about the relationship or even the person? When Ashley herself does not seem very confident, she has a lot of nervous laughter, like a lot of nervous laughter. So I've got a sinking feeling about her. I think that One of the examples of this is when she goes to the store, the witchy store, to buy witchy stuff to ensure that Manuel has a safe journey to the US. So if she truly believes in what she's doing and what she's buying and who she is, why does she not believe in her own powers and feel confident that he's going to arrive without any difficulty?
Probably because it's all without, like, she has no control over any of it. So as much as she can, set the intention and manifest good travels for him, there's only so much that she can do. And I feel like that's why she's so worried about it, because had he been here, she would have been able to give him some protection spells. And again, I don't really know how this works, but you'd figure if you're that concerned about him traveling, why don't you prepare? And like, I've seen people make like little spell jars. So why not send him a spell
Mm-hmm.
jar unless there's something in it that he can't travel with? But I feel like she's just kind of scrambling at the bit at this point to make sure that he's safe without having the forethought, which supports my initial opinion that she's impulsive. Her friends were alluding to
Yeah.
with, we didn't try, or we didn't believe that this was going to happen. And she even said, sometimes she'll make promises or she'll make a
Mm-hmm.
decision and then be like, oh no, I made the wrong decision. And then she said, and I quote, and then I run away, end quote.
Yeah.
So she knows herself well enough to know that this might be a thing. And then she laughs about it with her nervous laughter, but it just seems very impulsive. And even from the get-go, I really don't think that this couple is going to succeed.
Well, I think that there's something deeper. I think that her nervous laughter, the casting of spells or buying of spells to protect, but not truly believing that it's going to work, is representative of deeply seated self doubt. I think that's what's at the core. And that's why there was that whole talk about her making a decision and then backtracking. But I think she said something really interesting at this point. She said that in this situation, she can't do that, as if she's trapped. There's no escape from this choice, which I think is an interesting way to put it, because that suggests that no matter what happens in the relationship, she's determined to stick to her guns and go through with it, even if it seems like it's not the right choice, even if she gets that sense. She has determined, I'm going to stick with this.
But then on the flip side, she also said that she's putting herself in a position where if anything gets bad, then she will, again with the quotes, she'll bounce.
Yeah, exactly. So again, self-doubt. If things aren't going to work out, if my feelings aren't what I think they are, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to leave. Or is she? Manuel himself, 35 years old, is a construction worker. His mom doesn't know that he's moving to the US, which is crazy. There's just so much hiding in this relationship that we've discovered so far. So many things that are secret that nobody's bothered to divulge to anybody else, which is kind of important information. And as much as she says that she thinks that her being a witch is going to be an obstacle to their relationship, I don't think that that's the main point. I think the fact that they're not telling each other the truth is more problematic.
And I think that's a very good observation, because if she's not being honest with this, and he's not being honest with this with his family, what else is everyone hiding?
Yeah.
This is not a couple that's coming to the relationship with clean hands. There's way too many questions. There are too many little white lies that are coming out, which her friends, they've called her out on. And also, I just wanted to make the comment that her friends actually seem like pretty solid people. So I think that's a great reflection on her, that she has that kind of support and people who can be that honest with her. For her to be able to have those friends screams volumes about her. And I think that she needs to put more trust in them and in herself before she makes any more of these rash decisions, because they're only there to support and love her, which she knows, it's obvious. But she needs to accept that love and that guidance and just bounce right now.
Good point. When we found out that his mom doesn't know that he's coming to the US at all, I kind of felt a little bit like we were seeing Julio and Kristen. Do you remember them
Oh,
from
yes.
is it The Other Way? Yes. Because like maybe once Manuel tells his mom that he's in the US and that he's moved there, that she's going to pull on the strings just like Julio's mom did and bring him back to Ecuador. Although we do see scenes of Ashley wearing a wedding dress, so perhaps that's not going to happen.
But it also kind of reminds me of Armando.
Mm-hmm.
I think also from The Other Way, where he didn't tell her right off the bat because he knew she was going to lose it. And then after they decide to move to Mexico City, again, he didn't want to tell her because he knew she was going to flip out. So I wonder if that's part of the South American culture. Correct me if I'm wrong, but part of their
Men don't
culture
tell their moms.
or they're just so family oriented that
Mm,
they know exactly how their mothers are going to behave because that's part of their culture for the mothers to hover and to stay by your family and to help support your family. And then he's going against the culture by leaving. So by him not telling her until he lands, that's his way of avoiding the conflict and her ability to control his departure.
right. Yeah. So Ashley is really worried when she doesn't hear from Manuel after he lands in Miami. But I was really perplexed by all of this because I was just thinking to myself, well, if he's on a plane, his phone is in airplane mode, and she's saying, "Oh, my messages, he's not even reading them." Well, if they're unread, the phone is off or in a mode that doesn't allow it to receive messages. So he's flying,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great because he's got to get from Miami to Rochester. But this whole scene was really odd to me. She was being so extreme over what was likely a very small and insignificant and very normal little detail of life. And then when she got in the car and she started having her anxiety attack, she decided to pick up her phone and text her sister, call her sister. What? Get off the road. If you're feeling lightheaded and you think you're having a panic attack while driving a vehicle, stop driving, for pity's sake. It just does not make any sense that she keeps going and she's holding the phone in one hand and dialing with the other. And I thought this was all too much over the top, like kind of a show. What did you think?
I think so too. I mean, I can understand the panic attack, but I mean, classic anxiety or panic attack 101 is once you acknowledge what's happening, you need to remove yourself from that situation so that your body can re-regulate and you can process and
Mm-hmm.
work through whatever you're feeling. But because she's driving possibly a 1-ton vehicle that is extremely dangerous and she should be getting off the road. But instead, she's on top of her medical issue, which could genuinely be seen as a medical issue with how panic attacks how they can exhibit
Debilitate.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, debilitate. That's an excellent word for it. And then you add on driving, which
Mm-hmm.
requires 100% of your attention span. But then
Mm-hmm.
you add on texting, calling, handheld use of your phone. You're doing way too many things at once, and now your focus is on 20,000 different things when your focus needs to be on the road so that you can make sure that you don't kill yourself or other people. But that seems to be the least of her worries. So then I also wonder if she's quite selfish like that, because that's what it appears to be.
Yeah, there was something else going on in the car other than the panic attack. And
Yeah.
I felt like whatever that thing was, it was not genuine. It was not real. It was very strange. And the fact that she would have that reaction of calling on a not hands free phone, of not driving to the side of the road, of not looking after yourself, just seemed at complete odds with what she was saying was happening to her. So
You know
I,
what? As you explain it like that, it reminds me of Mary. Like it was one of
oh,
those
yeah, self induced.
self-induced panic attacks
Yeah.
for no reason, just because you want people to pity you. But
Mm-hmm.
instead of, actually dealing with what's going on, no, everyone fawn over me. Give me the
Mm.
attention. Oh, poor me. Look at me. Oh no. I can't breathe. She's asthma. She's a medical condition. No, man, she needs an Ativan. She needs counseling. She needs to calm down.
She needs to pull over. It's so simple.
Ugh.
Pull the car over to the side of the road. Stop.
And I
Wow.
actually kept an eye on the road while she was
Mm-hmm.
driving because it
Mm-hmm.
was it was making me freak out too. Because
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at, the sides of the shoulder of the road. Like sometimes they're too small and you can't pull over safely,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe there are just signs or anything. But no, no, there's lots of space for her to pull over. So there was no
Yeah.
reason for her not to stop other than her choice not to stop. Before we move on to the next one, I wanted to say
Yeah.
one more thing about this couple. So they've been together for 10 years, and she says
Ish.
ish, on and off, whatever. And she says that this is his first flight to the States.
To
Three
anywhere.
three
To,
flights, two
to transfer.
transfers for your first flight,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't speak English. here we go again with another one of these couples that have been together for years and have not learned to speak each other's languages.
It's the other way around. She speaks Spanish.
Oh, does she? Okay, so he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
speak English. So
Mm-hmm.
you'd think that if he's planning on moving to, I was going to say to England, if he's
England.
planning on
England.
moving to an
They speak
English-speaking
English there.
place, then it just makes sense to learn the language there too. But
Yeah, he's probably picked up a few basic sentences just for the purpose of traveling. And she's not mentioning that because she wants to make it look very dramatic and
yeah,
make
I
us
think,
feel like, oh, how is this even possible?
yeah,
Surely he's going to die. He will perish at an airport because nobody can understand Spanish. Of course they can. It's the United States.
yeah.
A lot
And
of people speak Spanish.
I want to say, isn't Spanish the second most spoken language in the world, or is that Mandarin? Maybe Spanish is third.
Oh,
Either
God, I
way,
have no idea.
it's up there. But her worrying about him not checking his messages. This is his first time flying. He's obeying every single thing that he's told
Yeah.
by the professionals. So he's obeying it. So this means that he is, in theory, flying safely, and that should, calm her a bit. But I don't think anything's going to calm her at this point.
No. All right, before we lose our calm, let's move on to Jasmine and Gino. Now, let's just remind everybody, Jasmine is 36, Gino is 53. She is from Panama City. He's from Canton, Michigan. And she opens up with a beautiful description of her husband-to-be: flamingo legs, sharky nose, and belly fat.
Mm-hmm.
She justifies by saying that she's not attracted to traditionally handsome men, and because she's insanely jealous. And so this is her interesting tactic or technique in order to avoid feeling like her guy is an object of admiration to other women. Does this work?
Is this not hysterical given what we just saw with Dane from the last season?
It is.
She's not attracted to typically attractive men, and I think we've just established it's a thing that Dane is an absolutely gorgeous human being.
It's okay. It's a fact.
Thank you. Yes, it is a fact, and yet Jasmine was still with him. So
yeah,
what does this even mean? It doesn't.
It just means that she's making up some cockamamie story because she feels like it, and she thinks that it's going to, I don't know, endear her to us or endear Gino to us. I really don't know what was going on in her brain when she said these words, but to me, it was just so insulting. Flamingo legs. I mean, when Gino sees this, do you think he'll be impressed?
I don't know, but I'm writing down flamingo legs.
Maybe she should have said flamingy legs, and then we would have thought it was cute.
They are flamingy. Oh, I miss the flamingis.
Okay, so Gino is taking a year's leave of absence from his job in order to look after Jasmine, and he characterizes their relationship as amazing because of all the coming back that they do after they fight. Is this word, amazing, how you would describe their relationship?
No, not in the slightest. I would say volatile, confusing.
Yes.
Irrational.
Yes.
Irresponsible.
Yes.
There are a lot of adjectives that I could use to describe the relationship, but I just wanted to note how Gino looked when he was talking about their relationship. He just seemed to be kind of like lost in love, and I think he's just in love with the idea of what he thinks the relationship is as opposed to what it actually is in reality.
Yeah, he's definitely in love with a facade, a fantasy that doesn't actually exist, except maybe in those moments when they're alone and there's no cameras, or even then, probably very seldomly. It's definitely not an amazing relationship. And if he truly believes that, he is 100% deluded.
Well, this is Gino. I mean, what kind of man would be supporting his fiancé in another country, living in another country, also having to support himself? And now he's going to have to support both her and himself while on a 1-year leave of absence from work. Where's that money coming from? What are you doing?
I think there's other stuff going on. I think that they're not divulging a bunch of details in order to make us think that, in fact, they're going to go from like a level of of our standard of living that's very high to a very, very basic standard of living because he has left his job. This guy is very, very sensible with money. He's more than likely stocked away a nice amount for them to live on over the next year. I mean, okay, so look at the money that he sent to Jasmine for her wedding dress allowance, which she then used for a Brazilian butt lift surgery.
Yes.
That's got to be in the area of at least $5,000. At
More.
least.
More.
Okay, let's go with 10. So, and this is what he's giving her for a budget for a dress that she's going to wear once. He does not have any financial difficulties. If he truly was in a position where he was thinking, we really have to tighten our belts over the next year because I'm leaving my job, he would not have sent her that money. Or he would have made some different arrangement where he was just working part-time, or like, because there's no need to take a full year off your work all the time in order to look after Jasmine. She's perfectly capable, I'm sure, of looking after herself.
Though we do see in the preview with her freaking out saying she wants to go home. And I actually laughed because I figured that's why Gino took so much time off of work, because he knew she was going to have these meltdowns. And if she's going to be having them every single day or as frequently as we've seen her have them, he doesn't have time or the ability to say to Jasmine, like, can we pause this? I got to go to work. Like, he would just end up losing his job anyway because of her. So I think the LOA was smart, but I don't think that an entire year is smart.
Exactly. I would have said 6 months at the most. If you need 3 months before you can get married, that time is very important. It's crucial. Good for him to be home 24/7. And then maybe a month or 2 or even 3 afterwards, after the marriage, to make sure that she's comfortable and familiar with the place and has some friends. Great. But why a whole year? Yeah. So this idea that they're going to be living very, very frugally and that she has to adjust, I think, is a bunch of baloney. He's got it all figured out. He knows what's what. You know, if he needed to, he could go back to work earlier than he has planned or is telling us that he's planned.
Yeah. And the fact that he says he's been an automotive engineer for like 30 years, we can assess that he makes a very sizable income, and he lives very frugally himself. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's got a giant nest egg that he's just planning on pulling from, but I can see him having everything completely budgeted out so he ensures that this is going to be a smooth transition. But also, you got to wonder how much money he has saved up, because you know that Jasmine is not going to want to get married at the courthouse or in a courtyard. She's going to want a big production, and that's going to be costly. So I'm assuming that he's also factored that in.
I'm sure we're going to have many discussions between the two of them about wedding expenses in the episodes to come before we get to their wedding. But I found it funny that they were starting off this episode with him attempting to buy a secondhand treadmill. The treadmill sticker price was $200. And he was obviously hesitant to spend that much money and saying, you know, it's not the time to buy one since she left his job. Okay, so we're getting all kinds of conflicting messages about the money situation. And I think it's all just being like little bricks being built up into a wall so that they can show us at the end of the season something like you're describing, where Jasmine wants to really splurge and he's like, no, we can't. I wouldn't even spend $200 on a treadmill and I've left my job for a whole year. But in fact, it's perfectly fine. He's smart. He's sensible. He's got the money. He's probably planned it down to the last penny where everything's going to go.
And I think it was funny that he walks in to see this treadmill. One would think that you would see a treadmill, like an ad for a treadmill, and see the listed price. But then he still went to go see it, and he didn't even try to barter. So it felt like just one of those stupid seedlings that production has placed to create some sort of indication of financial difficulties. So as you said, they're just building it up so it becomes a big thing later. And it's just, I don't think it's going to be a big thing. I think that was just a stupid scene.
It was, but I think it's also production having fun with us and pulling our leg a little bit, because once again, they're having this moment of pure fun where they're making Gino look excessively goofy. He's running on the treadmill in dress pants, a dress shirt, and a fedora, and his lace-up boat shoes.
The man has Michigan style.
God, help us. Okay, so I wanted to just briefly touch on the fact that Gino addressed the idea that he's been supporting Jasmine for the last little while. And we have talked about this before, but once again, he says, I'm supporting Jasmine. She used to be a teacher and she lost her job, but he does not explain why she lost her job. But production shows us that clip, that really important clip from a couple of years ago when Jasmine confronts him about having sent the naked pictures of her that she gave to him to his ex. And I really don't like the fact that every time they bring this up, he talks about financially supporting Jasmine without explaining that she lost her job because of him and his very, very stupid actions. So I feel like he's trying to take credit for helping Jasmine with money and endearing himself to the audience, making himself look really generous and magnanimous without taking accountability for this fact that this was due to his actions. And his actions now necessitate that he has to support her financially because she cannot get a job as a teacher.
Yeah, her reputation was completely ruined once that photo or photos got out.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go and meet Jasmine's oldest son, Fiancé. I thought that she was shielding her two boys from being on TV, but it appears that this is not the case because she's exposing them, or just the one, to the audience, and she plans to bring both of them to the United States as soon as she can, she says. So now that she has her K-1 visa, she has to tell Fiancé that she's leaving very soon. And so she says to us, no children in the world would ever want to be separated from their mother, but she's doing just that.
Yes.
And the kid seems completely fine. He's totally nonplussed by her announcement that she's leaving, which is probably indicative of the fact that he's completely used to it. Like, he lives with the dad most of the time. So she is making this announcement. She obviously wants an emotional reaction from her son. She wants tears and for him to be upset. But he's completely nonplussed. He's just like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Which only means he's used to it. This is totally normal. And this performance that she gives us is fake and ridiculous.
She didn't get the emotional reaction that she wanted from him, so she gave it to him herself. But I did want to say that I thought it was really sweet how she was speaking with him. She didn't have that like pitchy tone to her voice. Like, she was speaking to him normally in a way that's appropriate for his age. You could tell that she actually really does love him. And I found it interesting because I wonder if that's her normal speaking voice. But she goes into heretics anytime Gino's around, or I'd say anytime the cameras are there, but they were there that time. But maybe it was just because she was dealing with her kid that she was so calm and put together for the most part. But I did really enjoy the kindness and the love in that conversation with him. I thought that was a very sweet interaction.
Agreed. And I agree also that there are these moments where she seems calm and pleasant and kind. And I think we saw a few of those during the tell-all, especially when Amanda confronted Jasmine in that one scene, and she was just so, oh yeah, okay, whatever. No, I'm not going to respond. It was so perfect. And you would have thought that when somebody actually verbally attacks her, that she would get her back up and immediately start going into her almost violent rage-like state. But instead no, that's okay. I'm not going to respond. So she does have it in her to be like that. We know it, but we don't get to see it very often.
I wonder if she's been in therapy, because I feel like she's become a lot less unhinged recently. And if she is, I'm proud of her. If not, it seems as though she's doing some self-work. So I'm also proud of her for that, whatever way it's coming about. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but maybe she had a little help with being a little more calm on stage, but we won't know. I just appreciate not having to hear her shrieking. At the very beginning of the show, or of their segment, they show her bachelorette party bus that pulls in. And the only thing I could think when that thing pulls into view was Jabri planned it. Did that not look like Jabri's tour bus, if he could ever afford a tour bus? It was just so over the top.
Yeah, it was.
That was my big thing. Jabri's tour bus.
Funny. One of the things that I wanted to just mention is that we found out in this episode what actually happened at the U.S. Embassy in Panama when Jasmine went for a K-1 visa. So they told her that they had to reschedule the interview due to an issue with her application. They told her she had to reschedule. This was not divulged in the last episode of Before the 90 Days.
While she was losing her mind. Yeah.
She lost her mind. She gave us the impression that there was a huge problem, which may have warranted her over the top reaction. And she went on that tearful rant about, we'll never be together. Nobody's going to allow us to be together, Gino. Well, either that entire thing was scripted by the producers, or she really does have out of proportion reactions to situations which are only somewhat challenging or difficult, because that situation itself was nowhere near as dire as she made out with the size of her emotional meltdown. It's completely out of proportion.
I think that it further leads or lends a hand to her. Again, I am not a doctor, but it supports her possible diagnosis of having borderline personality disorder and or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because those little stressors, she ended up making them a lot bigger than what it was, because she only heard what she heard. Despite hearing everything, she only took part of that conversation and lost her mind about it because it's the only thing she was focused on.
Mm-hmm.
Her trigger response, from what I could see, was being told no, and then everything else just kind of went to the wayside because her trauma reaction is to hold on to that negative aspect of things, and she wasn't capable of acknowledging and accepting the reason behind it. It was just focusing on that initial issue that caused the blow up. So she could have avoided the whole thing had she, breathed, but I think that was just another ill-timed trauma reaction on her behalf.
But it does show that Gino is a good complement to her or opposite to her, because remember when she was in that phone call with him, he just said to her, did they say no? And she said no, they didn't say no. And that was the moment where she started coming down that really high peak of emotion, because he was the voice of reason saying, well, if they didn't say no, it's not a no. So don't dive off the deep end just yet. Let's figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
She had another semi kind of meltdown in this episode when she got a text message from Gino's sister-in-law, which simply said, they're going to be away during this week in April, so don't plan the wedding for that time. Totally makes sense. No, it wasn't prefaced with, hey, Jasmine, how are you doing? Or, oh, please, could you consider this? It's a special request just for me. I mean, it's Gino's brother. It's his sister-in-law. Jasmine calls this whole thing, this very brief, very short text, which is obviously sent in a hurry. She calls it rude and bossy. And I was just like, projecting much? Hello. And I don't think she's even capable of viewing Gino's family in a positive light, because she's so insecure about being accepted by them. And further to this, she seems to be sabotaging the possibility of a good relationship with them by deliberately misconstruing their intentions. So she calls Gino a jerk for saying that he's going to try to make sure that his brother and sister-in-law come to the wedding. What? And we see Jasmine just go over the edge for no reason at all. Either she's making it up for the camera, or she is unstable, or as you say, she's having one of those trauma-induced episodes. And it's just not a normal reaction to a very tiny, brief text message.
I can see how she would have that reaction just based on how high strung she really is and how she has this perspective of his family. And I feel like she's already put herself in the rejected box. So any kind of communication that comes from them just supports her position. And she does make that comment about, it being rude and manners go both ways. But what I don't think that she realizes is this is his sister-in-law's way of wanting to be involved. Like, FYI, I'm going to be gone through these dates, so we're not going to be able to make it if you schedule it here, but we would like to come, so FYI, don't schedule your wedding around here.
Yeah.
That's how I read it, and she took it in this completely different way. So I think she's reading into it based on her own negative fallacies of this box that she's put herself into, rejection.
But it's also incredibly selfish, because why do you make these assumptions about other people that they're rude and bossy towards you, and poor old me, I'm being victimized again, when you have no information? She doesn't know if the sister-in-law was in a hurry when she sent that text message. If, as you say, she was just trying to reiterate, hey, I really want to be a part of your wedding. So if you do this, I can't, and I don't want to miss it. And we find out from Gino, he says, I was on the phone with her and we were talking about that, and she just quickly texted off this message to you. So don't read anything into it. Yeah, normal. How do you hear tone in a text message anyway when it's that brief? How do you infer so many details that are all aimed at you when it's just a small number of words? To me, it just symbolizes as somebody who's so selfish, they can only think about themselves. And so she's taking this all on herself and victimizing herself and turning everybody else into the villain because that's her pattern. That's what she does.
And that's another trait of BPD and CPTSD,
Oh,
is almost like a tunnel vision.
okay.
So when something comes in, your immediate reaction is to see what that means for you, as opposed to thinking of anyone else in this entire planet. It all comes down
Right.
to you, because the world is constantly against you. And that's just a world that can exist for people who have gone through a significant amount of trauma. And I know I say a lot of trauma when it comes to Jasmine, although I'm not really clear on what it is, but she just has a lot of these trauma responses that I call trauma responses, that make sense based on what I've seen, both in personal and professional situations. But I think that's her problem, is she needs more therapy to be able to realize that not everything that happens, not everything that is said is a slight against you. You have to think about other people, you have to think about other situations, because the world does not revolve around you.
Amen to that. Okay, let's move on. Sophie is 23, oh, so young, from London, and Rob is 32 from Los Angeles. Sophie describes herself as a content creator. I would have said she's a trust fund baby.
That sounds a
Yes?
lot more accurate.
Mm-hmm. So we see Rob, who's putting roach traps throughout his apartment. Sorry, his crib. His crib. He grew up poor. She grew up rich. He thinks that he's going to have to bring her back to earth as far as the living conditions go. What that means, I'm not exactly sure. Is he expecting that he's going to have to support both of them financially? But wouldn't she be able to do her content creating from wherever she's living? Not a lot makes sense here. It's very strange. What does Rob do for a living? What is a jack of all trades? What are these odd jobs that Sophie describes that he does? It's never really disclosed except for some stint as a model, though. I don't think that that's a current job because we do see him walking across the street and he's got quite the belly on him. Anyway, so they come from very different economic backgrounds, but they do share common experiences like having to deal with racism, as they're both biracial. They've both been models, and they both seem very superficial. So maybe they are a good match. I love that he says Sophie is the hottest person he's ever dated, and that's all he ever wanted. So little criteria to have to live up to.
The bar is low.
It is. I'm sure this is a fabulous foundation for the relationship, nice and firmly rooted in physical appearances.
Mm-hmm. And, because she's so well versed in cosmetic surgery, I don't think he's ever going to have to worry about that going away.
Sophie?
Yeah.
What cosmetic surgery?
She's definitely had some.
She's only 23. What has she had done?
She's at least got lips.
Oh, yes, the injectables.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I was wondering if she hadn't had the implants.
Oh, I don't know for sure, but if she comes from money, she's obviously lived in these places where being aesthetically pleasing is a requirement. So she's obviously going to go out of her way to ensure that she can maintain that status quo.
Rob's bathroom is outside.
Yeah.
And he says, I realize that this place is not the kind of place that you bring a princess to. So somebody's going to cave. Which one of them will it be first? Is it going to be him because she insists that he have a better apartment and so they have to move? Or is it going to be her because she actually learns to adapt to his life living with cockroaches and a bathroom that is outside of your living space? And very, very scary looking. Like it looked like the kind of place that you would get murdered. It was so dark. Did you notice that?
Yeah. It was a place where you get kidnapped and murdered. Yes.
Oh, search. Yes. I should have mentioned the kidnapping first.
Yes.
But definitely murder.
Yeah. I think he feels safe there, and that's good for him, but that is not a safe area for, I would say, anyone else at all. It almost looks like one of those homeless camps that we've had in Kitchener, where
Hmm.
people just like throw up random walls, and then that's how the bathroom was created. Like when he said, I've got everything I need here, though I was waiting for him to say, like, I only have a hot plate or I only have a bar fridge. But then he says, but the bathroom's outside. And I was like, oh, hell's nah. Hell's nah. And then the camera goes in there and I'm like, no, it's not even like the linoleum doesn't go all the way to the walls. It just looks so gross. Like the exposed plywood. Oh, how do you can't even sanitize that.
No.
There's no way. And I also wanted to mention that when he pulls out that big box, I think it's black with like gold on it, and he's like, "We don't want to bring anything back with us or something." I thought it was a giant box of
Condoms.
magnum-sized condoms.
Me too.
So when he pulls them out and they're like these pucks, and he's just like shoving them under his bed and stuff, and I'm like, I mean, it's good to be prepared, but why are they? Oh, okay. It took me a minute to figure that out. Why are you shoving them all around the floor and under the appliances? When are you going to be, in the moment? You're like, hang on, I gotta grab a condom from under the fridge.
I
No.
really, really wanted the camera to pan through the entire apartment and show us exactly what it was like in his place, because it was frustrating. They only showed like a little corner where the sink was. They showed us the bed. They showed us underneath the bed. There were all these shots that didn't give us the full picture. I just want like a minute long, just pan around the entire room from 360 degrees. Show me what it is.
Yeah.
360, 380.
That's weird.
Let's move on.
I wanted it to be like, I think what you're talking about, like one of those real estate videos where you go in and you can
Yeah.
like move around
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
walk outside to walk to the
Yes.
bathroom.
What is it like to actually walk out of the apartment and go to the bathroom? And can you imagine doing that at night?
No, no,
Oh, wow.
no.
Okay, so Sophie's mom definitely doesn't like Rob. Yikes. It's never a good sign when your parents don't approve.
Oh,
And she calls him stupid.
and Rob the knob.
Well, yeah, she says Rob the knob, but that's like a British expression. It's pretty common. But she calls him stupid. That's a real insult.
Mm-hmm.
And Sophie doesn't seem to mind.
She also called him grumpy too, didn't she?
Yeah, she said he was grumpy. I don't mind grumpy, but stupid? I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think that the fact that her mom has nothing good to say about him says a lot.
No.
But she's so hell bent on being with him that she doesn't care.
Oh, yeah. So we have a couple of issues that have come up for this couple already. One is that there was a dating app that Sophie was using while she was in the US, which she ostensibly was using to find friends. But Rob's friend Tori said that he saw her on the app, on the part of the app that would have been for dating. So do we sense that Sophie is an attention seeker, or was she actually looking for buddies to hang out with and just ended up in the wrong spot on the website? And during this time, during COVID, Rob was sending sexy videos of himself to another woman. And we're not treated to much information on how this all transpired. We just know that Sophie knows he was online cheating, and there's no discussion or description of the fallout or how they reconciled. It's just stated as a fact and left for us to wonder about.
I predict they're going to have a big blow up about it once she arrives. So we're going to see more about it later on in the season.
Oh, okay. So it's just a seed that was planted for us.
I think
see.
So.
Yeah. And then the other big secret is the fact that Sophie has not yet told Rob that she's bisexual. And when she mentioned this, I was just like, is that even a thing anymore? Does anyone actually care anymore? In this world, we're so used to trans, bi, gay, queer, straight, lesbian, accept it all, you know? Does somebody of Rob's age really who lives in Los Angeles, would he really have a problem with his girlfriend being bisexual? I don't think so.
I think it comes down to whether or not she's going to be monogamous, which is, in my experience, been the biggest issue with those that are straight. They're dating someone with bi or who is bi. It's like, okay, well, you're with me, but are you going to want to cheat on me to be with the other sex, or how does that work? So that could be one of her worries. But it just feels like there's, like, during her conversation with her mom, she made some comments about how she hasn't told him different things yet. Maybe one thing had to do with her being bisexual, but she made a comment that was like, no, I'll tell him after the wedding and then he can find out everything. So it seems as though she's trying to nail him down for something before actually telling him who she is as a human being. But I'm still not quite sure what these secrets are going to be. But it just doesn't seem like the best way to start a marriage when you know that you have secrets and you've made a conscientious decision to not say anything until after you're married, so it's going to be more difficult to leave. We're going to find out so much more about her and obviously him in the season to come. I'm kind of interested, but she's already kind of boring.
Well, they're definitely an extremely superficial couple.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough life experience on her part to have developed an interesting personality yet, or any kind of really deep experiences. And for him, I mean, he said it all at the beginning when he said that he just wanted somebody who was really hot, and she's the hottest person that he's dated. Really? That's it? That's all you're looking for? Okay. So yeah, the issue of the bisexuality, it is a secret. Again, we're talking about couples that have not fully disclosed their path in life to each other, their dreams, their hopes, who they are. They haven't shared all the major important details. And the one thing that she talks about with her friend is that she might like to try things out with a woman so that she doesn't regret it later on in life. And I was just thinking to myself, look, you're only 23. Why don't you take a couple of years off before you get married and just figure that all out? Go have a relationship with women. See if you want to be married to a man or a woman. Get some real jobs. See what earning money to support yourself is actually like. And then go on to something as life-changing as marriage. But no, she's 23.
I think
she
that
knows
would
everything.
be very reasonable, but she doesn't seem like the reasonable kind of person. Like, I know they always say your 20s are meant to experiment and stuff, but sometimes you don't always get those opportunities in your 20s and you have to do them in your 30s. But either way, it's best to get those experiences out now as opposed to when you get married and then you're like, oh, I'd really like to explore things with this woman. You have a husband now. You have this big commitment, but you're going to throw that commitment to the side because you didn't plan things properly, you didn't live when you were supposed to live, you didn't experiment before you had these commitments. It just seems very impulsive on her behalf, and I think
Yeah.
it's just going to be messy.
Yeah. Agreed.
Speaking of messy,
Messy? Yes.
the dance.
Oh my God.
Can we talk
Oh, hot
about
mess?
the dance? When he said that he was going to do a dance when she comes off the plane, and he wanted it to be a big ordeal, and he wanted to have that Disney princess engagement, my brain went nuts.
Oh my God.
First of all, how cringe.
Yes.
Like, proposals at airports are not too uncommon, but ones with like a recorded track and like a dance. I wasn't quite sure if he was going to hire one of those companies to do like a flash dance or what, but then what makes it a Disney proposal? Will the cutlery and furniture start dancing? The baggage? God forbid the turnstiles or the baggage carousel get involved. This would either be extremely magical or extremely, extremely dangerous. And just the visuals had me cracking up to the point I had to actually rewind the show. But all I can think about is all of the objects in an airport that could possibly be sprinkled with magic and then come to life. Like, sure, it's one thing at Belle's castle, all the cutlery and everyone knows each other, but nobody's been sprinkled with magic before this. What I assume is going to be an abomination of a proposal in an airport. Where's the magic coming from? Will there be inanimate objects singing and dancing? I've got hopes.
Well, also the birds, because you have to have the birds tweeting little songs and singing, and there are always birds stuck inside airports. Are they going to participate?
Oh, I wonder if they're going to come in at one point and do like a swoop over during like when he gets on his knee, and then they'll all just be like, oh,
and they'll hold up a banner. They'll hold
yeah,
up a little banner in their beaks.
just engage.
Okay. Well, that was fun.
That was the most fun that I've had this episode. I was running off on my own tangent. And
And
that
now we know a little bit more about how Amy's brain works. It's a magical place. All right. Nicole. Are we ready for Nicole or Nikki?
Nikki, yeah. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Nikki, New Jersey, with Justin, Moldova. Nikki says she's 47. She is not 47. 57? 67? I think it's somewhere in there. Justin is 35. She has had way too much plastic surgery. And if you look at her neck, it's the skin on it's very crepey. So, and you can always tell somebody's real age by the skin on their neck, because it's one of the parts that people tend to ignore and not really pay attention to until it's too late.
And their hands.
And their hands. Yes, her hands as well. So 47, I do not buy for even a split of a second. And she describes herself as the person that you go to when you have questions about plastic surgery. No comment. She says
fine.
80% of the world gives her positive feedback. Does that include you, Amy?
Not with regards to her plastic surgery, but with the success in her transition, I would say. She seems, out of all the trans couples or trans people that we've seen on the show, she seems to be the most comfortable in her own skin, which I think is huge for her.
Which makes sense, because she transitioned when she was 20. She had her final bottom surgery at 20. And if she is, I can't say she's 47 with a straight face. If she's in her 50s now, she's had a good long time to be comfortable in her new real skin, right?
Let's play a math game.
Okay.
So let's say she's 50.
Okay.
She transitioned when she was 20, so that was 30 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And she met him how many years ago? 17?
17 years ago. He was 35. So he's 18 when they met. And she was somewhere above 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I noticed that doing quick math, and I was like, that's an interesting age gap.
It really is, because she is almost predatorial, and he really seems like the innocent bystander who got swept up. Anyway, back to the plastic surgery stuff, because it is so incredibly obvious and in your face. And no, I don't have a problem with people getting plastic surgery. It's your body, you do what you want with it. I don't care. But when they do it to the point where they become less beautiful than they were before, because it starts looking very artificial, pulled, or you could see that there's just something wrong with Nikki's nose, where it's just been attacked with scalpels too many times.
Manhandled too many times.
Yes. I start to get distressed. And she obviously has had a BBL, same as Jasmine. Did you catch a glimpse of how exaggerated it is? Like, she's got this tiny little waist, and then her bum just like, why do you do the lips? I don't understand. But why do you do the bum? How do you get jeans to fit you? Do they have to be tailor-made afterwards?
I can't get pants to fit me for the life of me right now. And I just have large, quote unquote, large birthing hips. So you throw in the hips and then you throw in this giant bum. I don't know where you're finding these pants. If anyone who's had a BBL has been able to find pants that fit, can you let me know? I haven't had one myself, but apparently I need one of those designers to sew my pants for me, because something might actually fit then. Smaller waist, bigger hips and butt.
Yeah.
Anyone
well, I mean, you're on trend.
Right.
You're on trend naturally. Good for you.
Thank you.
But when it's exaggerated like that, and you can see, oh, this person actually spent money and time and injected something. What? Styrofoam? Balloons? Cushions? Buns? What do they put inside the bum?
Well, if it's just like a butt implant, typically it's one of those like form-fitted, I want to say like a plastic thing, but she did a BBL, which means that she transferred fat from all over her body to do it. And that's how sometimes BBLs, if not done right, can look like you're wearing a diaper. Oh. Like that woman wearing red when we were in Portugal that one year, remember?
Oh, okay.
Just had to give you that picture. Yes, that's it can look like. Yeah. So hers, despite being outlandishly large and disproportionate, it's not the worst I've ever seen.
No, it's not the worst. I just found it very deliberate looking, very
Yeah.
obvious. And I don't like that. I really like those pictures that they showed us interspersed in her segment where she was in Moldova before or in Mexico with her boyfriend. And she looked so beautiful.
She was gorgeous.
Maybe it's partly that blue eyeshadow she's wearing, and it makes her eyes look very small and slitted. Like, she's so beautiful naturally. I just don't understand why she had to go to the extremes that she has with plastic surgery, as well as the extremes with the fancy makeup. But maybe that was because it was part of the photo shoot.
Well, I've read that she's obsessed with Barbie, so she had
Okay.
a lot of work done to help her look more like Barbie, including, I don't know if you caught this, but she had a surgery to change the color of her eyes.
Yes, I did catch that, and I was like,
I didn't even
how
know that was a thing.
do they inject paint in your eyeballs?
No idea.
Do they laser them to take all the color out and then put little cardboard cut? Like, how do they do that?
Cardboard cutout eye. That reminds me of those little Barbie cutout things, little paper ones that you could
Yeah.
flap the things on, and then you can
The,
just change her eyes by just slipping in the different colors. That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than that. It makes me a little bit ill to think about. Back on track.
Yes.
Nikki says that she's looking for somebody who is, and she goes through this long list of things that are all completely on the physical side. And then the only two qualities that she's looking for that are non-physical are funny and sweet. So he doesn't have to be smart, loyal, kind, sincere. Nope, none of that. Just hot and hung. So Justin, this poor man whose actual name is Igor, but she can't stand using that name, so she's rechristened him Justin. They already once had a K-1 visa, and he came to the United States, but their issues stemmed from the fact that he was being lazy and unhelpful around the house. And then in a fit of anger, I suppose, Nikki revealed to him that she had been a man at one point in her life, that she'd had gender reassignment surgery, and then they broke up as a result. So this is their second attempt at a relationship. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think it was awful of her to not tell him from the very beginning. I mean, I could see if it was just a one-night stand or something, but if you're in an actual relationship with this person and you're engaged, that's not the time to tell them that you had gender reassignment surgery. This is a discussion that needs to happen at the very beginning of the relationship so that you can both get on the same page. And why was gender identification, assignment, sexuality not a topic when they first started talking? Because obviously, are they not both going to want to know, again, with the last couple, Sophie and Rob, if you are bisexual or poly or whatever, shouldn't that always be discussed before you decide that you're going to get married? It just seems like that's not even a little white lie. That's actively living this massive red flag. And now you want him to just forgive you for it and move on. There needs to be some sort of apology and forgiveness and growth from that. But it seems as though she just said, I want to get back together. And he's like, okay. But now he won't, I don't know if I can say this, but now he won't go down on her. And he suggested getting a younger man to do it. I think that's just so ridiculous because now he's got this hang up about what that body part means. But in reality, it's a medically created body part that could theoretically be the most perfect medically created body part in the world. So can't you just enjoy what the doctors were capable of doing? Because obviously he didn't have an issue with it for 2 years and had no reason to question it before that. But now he's got this negative connotation towards it, which is probably giving him performance anxiety.
Yeah, it really sounds like that is the issue. When they went to Mexico and they were there for 2 weeks, they only had sex 4 times at the most. And so Nikki is raising this issue as a red flag now to say, Justin, you have to get over this. I need you to be the man that you were before in their previous relationship. And yeah, I totally agree. She should have told him right from the get-go, this is who I am. This is what happened to me a long time ago. I am a woman now. That's what you see and what you're going to experience. And so that he could have dealt with his feelings beforehand. But it does feel like a betrayal not to tell somebody an important detail like that about what your life experience has been, and then to spring it on them in the heated moment of an argument, wrong time,
Vindictive.
and then to not give them enough time and space to really understand it, come to terms with it, and accept it. So maybe he has now. Maybe that's why they're able to rekindle their relationship. But I think we're going to see this crop up quite a bit during the season.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an ongoing thing that he's going to have to work through, because like I do believe that by her throwing this in his face, that it did traumatize him, because now the woman that he knew, or that he's known for the past 17, 20 years, whatever, is, although the same person, just not the same person.
Yeah.
It creates a huge amount of distrust, and I don't know what else he's thinking at this point, but just a lot of distrust, and there's going to be a lot that's going to need to happen before this is going to be a thing.
So having watched the entire first episode, do you have any gut instincts as to who's going to make it, who's not going to make it?
Well, I still think that despite all odds, Gino and Jasmine will. I'm not sure about Ashley and Manuel. That just seems like a disaster. Nikki and Justin, I don't know. I don't think we've seen enough. So, we have seen 4. So Jasmine and Gino, yes.
You left Sophie and Rob out.
Yeah, Rob the knob. I don't know. I'll make my prediction based on how the Disney proposal at the airport turns out. I'd like to see what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. See
if a dancing armoire comes out, like, I'm in 100%.
Okay, so let's get to the juicy part of the show. It's time to reveal your secret scoop of the week. What do you have for us?
So I found out while doing a different kind of investigation that back in 2014, Nikki had surgery to correct breast implants. She had bad breast implants and was on the show called Botched. She had her reconstruction or augmentation completed, but she was ultimately kicked off the show and it was never aired.
Oh, what did she do? Do we know?
Nobody has actually come out from production to say anything specifically, but it has been like different conjecture has said it's just she's an extremely difficult person to deal with, very high maintenance, not an easy person to deal with. So instead of having her on the show, they just decided to cut it out. But obviously she still got her implants fixed, so good for her. But also found out that the doctor who did the botched job, the first one that was subsequently fixed, he has since been stripped of his license.
Oh no.
Yes.
Well, I mean, good. Oh, good. But sad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he did both her breast implants and her nose job, which is probably why it looks like that. But I was floored when, it's, she was on Botched, but she wasn't actually on Botched.
Wow. Great gossip. Wow. I'm amazed at your sleuthing skills to find out all of these very, very important details from so long ago. Amazing.
2014. We'll find more. I still have more digging to do. I have a lot of questions.
As do I. Before we go, please be sure to follow 90 Day Fiancé Honestly on the podcast platform of your choice so you don't have to miss any episodes. And if you have another moment to spare, please do rate us. Thanks so much for listening, and tune in again next week when we'll be discussing the next group of 90-day couples and figuring out if they have what it takes to make it. See you next week.